Introduction. There is a silent conversation happening inside your mind right now. It has been there for years, whispering judgments, doubts, expectations, and fears. Most people live their entire lives listening to that voice without ever questioning where it came from. They accept it as truth. They believe its criticisms. They let it define their worth. And that is where their suffering begins. This audiobook is about one of the most misunderstood forces in human life: self-love. Not the shallow version sold by social media, not empty affirmations repeated in front of a mirror. Real self-love is deeper. It is a quiet revolution that happens inside you. It is the moment you decide that your relationship with yourself matters more than the approval of the world. When you learn to love yourself, something extraordinary happens. Fear begins to lose its grip. Comparison weakens. Your decisions become clearer. You stop chasing validation and start building meaning. You become powerful, not because you control others, but because you finally understand yourself. This audiobook is a journey. It will challenge beliefs you have carried for years. It will ask you to examine how you speak to yourself, how you treat your emotions, and how you allow others to treat you. But most importantly, it will guide you toward a place of inner strength that cannot be easily shaken. If you stay with this journey, you will not simply feel better. You will become different. You will think differently, choose differently, and live differently. And it all begins with one simple but radical idea: you deserve your own love. It does not announce itself with noise or drama. It appears in ordinary situations: a long night staring at the ceiling, a feeling of emptiness after achieving something you once desperately wanted, or a sudden awareness that you have been living according to expectations that were never truly yours. In that moment, a question surfaces: when was the last time I genuinely cared about myself? For many, the answer is uncomfortable. We are taught from a young age to focus outward. We learn to please, to perform, to succeed, to adapt. We become experts at reading the needs of others while becoming strangers to our own emotions. Over time, this disconnection grows so familiar that we stop noticing it. Ignoring yourself is rarely intentional. It happens gradually. Each time you silence your feelings to avoid conflict. Each time you push aside exhaustion to meet another demand. Each time you compare your worth to someone else's achievements. These small acts accumulate, building a life where your inner world is neglected. The consequences are subtle at first: a persistent dissatisfaction, a sense that something is missing even when everything appears fine. Many people try to fill this space with productivity, relationships, or possessions. Yet, the emptiness remains, because it is not caused by a lack of external success. It is caused by an absence of internal connection. Self-love begins with awareness. It starts when you notice the gap between how you treat others and how you treat yourself. Most people offer kindness, patience, and understanding to friends and family. Yet inside their own minds, they maintain a harsh environment filled with criticism and unrealistic expectations. Imagine speaking to a friend the way you speak to yourself during moments of failure. The words would sound cruel. You would never intentionally inflict that level of judgment on someone you care about. And yet you repeat it internally, often without resistance. This inner dialogue shapes your reality. The brain does not easily distinguish between external voices and internal ones. When you constantly reinforce negative beliefs about yourself, your mind accepts them as facts. Over time, these beliefs influence your behavior, limiting what you attempt and what you believe you deserve. Recognizing this pattern is not about blame. It is about understanding. Many of these internal voices were learned. They echo past experiences, cultural pressures, and moments of rejection. But learned patterns are not permanent. They can be examined, challenged, and transformed. The first step toward self-love is learning to listen without judgment. Instead of suppressing uncomfortable emotions, you begin observing them with curiosity. Why do certain situations trigger insecurity? Why does success sometimes feel undeserved? These questions open a dialogue with yourself that replaces avoidance with awareness. There is courage in turning inward. It requires honesty about fears and vulnerabilities that may have been hidden for years. But within that honesty lies freedom. When you acknowledge your inner experience, you reclaim the ability to respond intentionally rather than react automatically. Consider the way you respond to mistakes. Many people interpret errors as evidence of personal inadequacy. They attach identity to performance, believing that failure reveals something fundamentally flawed about them. This belief creates anxiety and discourages growth. Self-love introduces a different perspective. It separates actions from identity. A mistake becomes information rather than condemnation. It becomes an opportunity to learn rather than a verdict on your worth. This shift is subtle but powerful. It transforms challenges into pathways for development instead of barriers to confidence. Another sign of self-neglect is the constant pursuit of external validation. When your sense of worth depends entirely on approval from others, you surrender control of your emotional stability. Praise brings temporary relief. Criticism feels devastating. Your self-esteem rises and falls with opinions you cannot control. Learning to love yourself restores balance. It does not eliminate the desire for connection or recognition. Instead, it establishes an internal foundation that remains steady regardless of external feedback. You begin making decisions aligned with your values rather than driven solely by acceptance. This transformation is not immediate. It unfolds through consistent attention to your thoughts and behaviors. Each time you choose compassion over criticism, you reinforce a new pattern. Each time you honor your needs without guilt, you strengthen trust in yourself. Trust is a central element of self-love. Many people struggle to rely on their own judgment because they have spent years prioritizing external voices. Rebuilding trust requires small, deliberate actions. Keeping promises to yourself. Respecting your limits. Celebrating progress without dismissing it. As trust grows, so does confidence. Not the loud, performative confidence that seeks constant affirmation, but a quiet assurance rooted in self-understanding. You become less afraid of uncertainty because you know you can support yourself through difficulties. There will be resistance along the way. Old habits rarely disappear without challenge. Moments of doubt will surface, tempting you to return to familiar patterns of self-criticism. During these moments, patience becomes essential. Self-love is not about perfection. It is about persistence. Every time you notice a negative thought and gently question it, you are practicing self-respect. Every time you choose rest instead of relentless productivity, you affirm your humanity. These choices accumulate, gradually reshaping your relationship with yourself. The realization that you have been ignoring yourself is not a failure. It is an awakening. It marks the beginning of a new chapter in which your inner world receives the attention it deserves. From this awareness grows a commitment to treat yourself with the same care you offer others. And that commitment is the foundation of power. Because when you stop abandoning yourself, you become unstoppable. Chapter 2. Why self-love is not selfish. It is survival. One of the greatest obstacles to self-love is a belief that has been repeated so often it feels like truth, that prioritizing yourself is selfish. From childhood, many people are praised for sacrifice. They are taught that being good means putting others first, ignoring their own needs, and enduring discomfort without complaint. Over time, This lesson becomes deeply ingrained. Caring for yourself begins to feel like betrayal. Rest feels like laziness. Saying no feels like guilt. But there is a quiet danger in this mindset. A person who constantly empties themselves to fill others eventually runs dry. Emotional exhaustion does not arrive suddenly. It builds slowly, hidden beneath responsibility and obligation. At first, you may feel proud of your ability to handle everything. You become the reliable one, the strong one, the person everyone depends on. Yet inside, a different story unfolds. Resentment begins to whisper. Fatigue settles into your bones. You start to feel invisible in your own life, as if you exist only to meet the expectations of others. This is not kindness. It is self-erasure. Self-love is not the opposite of generosity. In fact, it is what makes genuine generosity possible. Imagine trying to pour water from an empty cup. No matter how much you want to give, there is nothing left to offer. The same principle applies to emotional energy. When you neglect your well-being, your ability to support others becomes strained and unsustainable. True self-love recognizes that your needs matter. It does not demand that you abandon compassion or responsibility. Instead, it insists on balance. It asks you to include yourself in the circle of care you extend to everyone else. This idea can feel uncomfortable at first. Many people fear that focusing on themselves will make them arrogant or detached. But self-love is not about believing you are superior. It is about acknowledging that you are human. Being human means having limits. Your energy is finite. Your time is limited. Your emotional capacity requires renewal. Ignoring these realities does not make you stronger. It makes you fragile. When you push beyond your limits without rest or reflection, stress accumulates. Anxiety increases. Your mind and body begin to signal distress in subtle ways: irritability, lack of motivation, difficulty concentrating. These signals are not weaknesses, they are messages. Self-love teaches you to listen before those messages become crises. It encourages preventive care rather than emergency repair. You begin to ask yourself important questions. What do I need right now? What boundaries must I establish to protect my well-being? Which commitments align with my values, and which exist only to satisfy external pressure? Boundaries are often misunderstood. Some people interpret them as walls that isolate. In reality, healthy boundaries are bridges to sustainable relationships. They clarify expectations and reduce hidden resentment. When you communicate your limits honestly, you give others the opportunity to respect them. Without boundaries, relationships become unbalanced. You may find yourself agreeing to things you secretly resist, hoping to avoid disappointment or conflict. But suppressed emotions rarely disappear. They accumulate beneath the surface, shaping your behavior in ways you may not notice. You become less patient, less present, less authentic. Self-love invites honesty. It allows you to express your needs without apology. This honesty strengthens connections because it is rooted in respect, both for yourself and for others. People who truly care about you want you to be well. They benefit from a version of you that is energized and emotionally available, not depleted and resentful. Another misconception about self-love is that it encourages isolation or independence to an extreme. In truth, loving yourself deepens your capacity for connection. When your sense of worth is not entirely dependent on external approval, you approach relationships with openness rather than fear. You stop clinging to people for validation. You stop tolerating mistreatment out of loneliness. You choose relationships that enhance your life instead of filling emotional voids. This shift is transformative. It replaces desperation with intention. Survival is not only physical, it is emotional and psychological. Humans are not designed to thrive under constant self-neglect. Chronic stress and internal conflict erode mental health over time. Without self-compassion, the mind becomes a hostile environment. Consider how you respond to emotional pain. Many people instinctively suppress difficult feelings, believing they should be strong enough to handle everything alone. They judge themselves for sadness, anger, or fear. This judgment compounds suffering. Instead of processing emotions, they become trapped in cycles of avoidance. Self-love offers a different response. It treats emotions as information rather than enemies. Sadness signals loss or unmet needs. Anger reveals boundaries that have been crossed. Fear highlights uncertainty or vulnerability. When you approach these feelings with curiosity instead of condemnation, you gain insight into your inner world. This awareness is essential for survival in a complex world. It allows you to adapt, to make decisions aligned with your well-being, and to respond to challenges with clarity. Emotional intelligence is not a luxury. It is a skill that determines how effectively you navigate life. There is also a quiet strength that emerges from self-acceptance. When you stop fighting yourself, you conserve energy previously spent on internal conflict. You become more resilient because your foundation is stable. External difficulties still arise, but they no longer shake your identity. Self-love does not eliminate hardship. It equips you to face hardship without abandoning yourself. During moments of failure or disappointment, you remain an ally rather than an enemy. You speak to yourself with encouragement instead of contempt. This internal support system becomes a source of endurance. It is important to understand that self-love is a practice, not a destination. It is expressed through daily actions, choosing rest when exhausted, seeking help when overwhelmed, celebrating progress instead of dismissing it. These actions may appear small, but their cumulative effect is profound. Each act of care reinforces a message to your subconscious. I am worthy of attention. I am deserving of kindness. Over time, this message reshapes your self-perception. Confidence grows not from grand achievements, but from consistent respect for your own humanity. There will be moments when prioritizing yourself feels uncomfortable. Old beliefs may resurface, accusing you of selfishness. During these moments, remember that survival requires maintenance. A neglected system eventually collapses. A cared-for system adapts and thrives. By loving yourself, you are not withdrawing from the world. You are preparing to engage with it more fully. You become capable of offering presence instead of obligation, generosity instead of exhaustion, and authenticity instead of performance. Self-love is survival because it preserves the most important relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. And when that relationship is strong, every other aspect of your life begins to transform. Chapter 3: Breaking the Habit of Self-Criticism. There is a voice inside your mind that has been speaking for years. It comments on your appearance. It judges your decisions. It reminds you of past mistakes. It predicts future failures before you even begin. For many people, that voice is not kind. It is sharp. It is impatient. It is relentless. And because it has been there for so long, you may not even question it anymore. You assume it is rational. You believe it is necessary. You tell yourself that without this harsh inner critic, you would become lazy or irresponsible. But here is the truth. Constant self-criticism does not create excellence. It creates fear. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of not being enough. And fear shrinks your potential. Self-criticism often begins early in life. Perhaps you were praised only when you achieved something. Perhaps mistakes were met with disappointment instead of understanding. Perhaps comparison was a daily habit in your environment. Over time, you internalized those voices. They became your own. The mind is designed to learn through repetition. When critical thoughts are repeated consistently, they form neural pathways. The brain begins to default to these patterns automatically. What once felt external becomes internal identity. You may say things to yourself like, "I should be better by now." "Why do I always mess things up?" "Other people are more capable than me." "I will never succeed." These statements feel factual because they are familiar. But familiarity does not equal truth. The first step in breaking the habit of self-criticism is awareness. You must begin to notice your inner dialogue as if you were listening to someone else speak. When a negative thought appears, pause. Instead of accepting it instantly, examine it. Ask yourself, is this statement accurate or is it exaggerated? Would I say this to someone I care about? Is this thought helping me grow or is it holding me back? This practice may feel unnatural at first. The critical voice may resist being questioned. It may become louder temporarily. That is normal. Habits do not dissolve quietly. Understand something important. The inner critic often believes it is protecting you. It thinks that by highlighting your flaws, it is preventing embarrassment or failure. But in reality, it often paralyzes action. When you are constantly afraid of making mistakes, you avoid opportunities that could expand your life. Self-love does not eliminate accountability. It transforms the way accountability is delivered. Instead of saying, "I am a failure," you say, "That did not work, but I can learn from it." Instead of saying, "I am not good enough," you say, "I am improving and still growing." Notice the difference. The first statements attack identity. The second focus on behavior and growth. Identity-based criticism is destructive because it feels permanent. Growth-based reflection is empowering because it leaves room for change. Another powerful technique in breaking self-criticism is identifying cognitive distortions. The human mind is prone to biased thinking. For example, all or nothing thinking. If I am not perfect, I am worthless. Overgeneralization, I failed once, so I will always fail. Mind reading, everyone must think I am incompetent. Catastrophizing, this mistake will ruin everything. When you catch these distortions, label them. Simply saying, "That is all or nothing," thinking, creates distance between you and the thought. You realize that not every mental statement deserves belief. Compassion plays a central role in this transformation. Compassion is not weakness. It is the ability to recognize suffering and respond with care. When you make a mistake, imagine speaking to yourself as you would to a younger version of yourself, someone still learning, still developing. You would not scream at a child for falling while learning to walk. You would encourage them to stand again. Why should you treat yourself differently? Self-compassion has been studied extensively in psychology. Research consistently shows that individuals who practice self-compassion are more resilient, more motivated, and less anxious. Contrary to popular belief, kindness does not reduce ambition. It strengthens it by reducing fear. There is also a biological component to this process. Harsh self-criticism activates the brain's threat system. It triggers stress hormones and prepares the body for danger. When this state becomes chronic, it exhausts your nervous system. You may feel constantly on edge, even when no real threat exists. Self-compassion activates the soothing system. It promotes feelings of safety and calm. When you feel safe internally, creativity and problem-solving improve. You are more likely to take healthy risks and pursue meaningful goals. Breaking self-criticism requires patience. You are not trying to silence the voice completely. Instead, you are retraining it. Over time, the harsh tone softens. The judgments become less extreme. The inner dialogue becomes more balanced. It can also help to identify triggers. Are you more critical when you are tired? After social interactions? When comparing yourself online? Awareness of patterns allows you to intervene earlier. Comparison is a powerful fuel for self-criticism. In a world saturated with curated images and highlight reels, it is easy to believe that everyone else is progressing faster. But comparison rarely reflects full reality. It compares your internal struggles to someone else's external presentation. Self-love shifts focus inward. Instead of measuring yourself against others, you measure progress against your own past. Ask, am I more aware than I was a year ago? Have I learned from previous experiences? Growth becomes personal rather than competitive. There will be setbacks. Some days the critical voice will feel loud and convincing. On those days, do not judge yourself for struggling. That would only continue the cycle. Instead, acknowledge the difficulty and gently return to compassion. Progress is not linear. It moves in waves. The goal is not perfection, but awareness. Imagine what your life would feel like without constant internal attack. Imagine waking up without immediate judgment. Imagine pursuing goals with curiosity instead of fear. This is not unrealistic. It is the natural result of a healthier internal relationship. As you reduce self-criticism, you will notice subtle shifts. You may speak more confidently. You may attempt new challenges. You may recover from mistakes more quickly. These changes reinforce the new pattern. Breaking the habit of self-criticism is not about becoming indifferent to improvement. It is about replacing hostility with guidance. You become a mentor to yourself rather than a bully. And when your inner environment becomes supportive instead of destructive, your external life begins to reflect that stability. Because the way you speak to yourself determines the way you show up in the world. Chapter 4. Rewriting your inner dialogue. Most of them are automatic. They arise without invitation, shaped by years of repetition. These thoughts form an internal dialogue, a constant commentary that influences how you interpret events, how you see yourself, and how you respond to the world. You may not control the first thought that appears in your mind, but you can influence the second. That is where transformation begins. Your inner dialogue is powerful because it operates quietly. It colors your perception of reality without demanding attention. If you believe you are unworthy, you will interpret neutral events as rejection. If you believe you are capable, you will see obstacles as challenges rather than proof of inadequacy. The same situation can feel empowering or devastating depending on the story you tell yourself. Rewriting your inner dialogue is not about pretending everything is positive. It is about choosing interpretations that are realistic, constructive, and aligned with growth. This process requires intention. Start by observing the language you use internally. Is it absolute? Does it include words like always, never, completely, ruined? Extreme language intensifies emotional reactions. When you say, I always fail, your brain searches for evidence to confirm that belief. It ignores moments of success. Instead, practice balanced language. Replace I always fail with I struggled this time. Replace I am terrible at this with I am still learning this skill. The difference may appear small, but psychologically it is significant. Balanced language reduces emotional intensity and opens space for improvement. There is also power in shifting from judgment to description. Judgment attaches meaning to an event. Description simply states what happened. For example, judgment, I embarrassed myself. Description, I misspoke during the presentation. The second statement removes unnecessary identity damage. It focuses on the event rather than labeling you as flawed. From there, you can evaluate what to improve without attacking your character. Another effective method is intentional affirmation, but not the superficial kind that feels disconnected from reality. Effective affirmations are grounded in truth and growth. Instead of saying, "I am perfect," say, "I am worthy of respect." Instead of, "I have no weaknesses," say, "I am developing new strengths every day." Affirmations work when they reinforce values rather than deny challenges. It can also help to externalize your inner critic. Imagine it as a character shaped by past experiences. Perhaps it resembles a strict teacher or a voice from childhood. When you separate that voice from your core identity, you gain power over it. You can respond instead of react. For example, when the critic says, "You are not ready," you can respond internally, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I choose to move forward anyway." This approach acknowledges the voice without surrendering control. Rewriting your dialogue also involves gratitude. The human brain has a natural negativity bias. It scans for threats more than positives. Without deliberate effort, your mind will focus on what is wrong. Gratitude shifts attention toward what is working. Each day, identify small wins, completed tasks, moments of courage, acts of kindness you offered or received. This practice gradually reconditions your perception. You begin noticing strengths that were previously ignored. Another essential component is self-forgiveness. Many people carry mental records of past mistakes, replaying them repeatedly. This habit reinforces shame. But growth requires release. Holding on to old errors does not improve them. It only prolongs emotional pain. Forgiveness does not mean denying responsibility. It means acknowledging that you did the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. It means allowing yourself to evolve beyond outdated versions of yourself. Language shapes identity. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are anxious, you reinforce that identity. Instead, try saying, "I experience anxiety sometimes, but I am learning to manage it." Notice the difference. The second statement separates you from the condition. It implies possibility. This subtle shift builds psychological flexibility. You are not fixed. You are dynamic. You are not your worst thought, your most difficult emotion, or your most painful memory. Your inner dialogue also influences your body. Thoughts trigger emotional and physiological responses. Encouraging thoughts can calm your nervous system. Harsh thoughts can activate stress. Over time, the cumulative effect shapes overall well-being. Imagine waking each morning with an internal voice that says, "Today is an opportunity. I may face challenges, but I can handle them." That mindset alters posture, tone of voice, and decision-making. Confidence becomes embodied rather than forced. The process of rewriting takes repetition. Neural pathways strengthen through consistent practice. At first, positive reframing may feel artificial. The old voice may feel louder and more convincing. Continue anyway. Each new thought creates a small pathway. Over time, those pathways become dominant. Consider keeping a journal. Writing your thoughts exposes patterns that remain hidden in your mind. When you see recurring themes on paper, you can evaluate them more objectively. You may discover that your harshest judgments repeat in predictable cycles. Replace reactive thoughts with intentional responses. Instead of immediately concluding that something is a disaster, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, what is another possible interpretation? This pause disrupts automatic negativity. Rewriting your inner dialogue also means celebrating effort, not just outcomes. Many people tie their worth to results. When results fall short, self-esteem collapses. But effort is within your control. Acknowledge courage. Acknowledge persistence. These qualities matter regardless of immediate success. Over time, You will notice that your internal tone becomes gentler. The critic loses authority. A supportive voice emerges, one that encourages growth without humiliation. This voice does not ignore reality. It engages with it constructively. The goal is not constant positivity. It is alignment with truth and compassion. Life will include setbacks. You will have imperfect days. But with a healthier inner dialogue, those experiences become manageable rather than overwhelming. You begin to trust yourself more. You rely less on external reassurance because your internal reassurance is steady. You become your own source of stability. And when your internal language reflects respect and belief, your actions follow. Because the story you tell yourself becomes the life you build. Some were formed in childhood, in moments when you felt misunderstood, rejected, or unseen. Others developed later through heartbreak, failure, betrayal, or loss. These experiences do not disappear simply because time passes. They settle quietly beneath the surface of your awareness, shaping how you see yourself and how you move through the world. Many people try to outrun their pain. They distract themselves with work, entertainment, or constant activity. They convince themselves that the past no longer matters. But unhealed wounds do not vanish through avoidance. They wait patiently, resurfacing in unexpected ways. In sudden anger, unexplained sadness, fear of intimacy, or persistent self-doubt. Self-love requires courage because it asks you to turn toward what hurts instead of away from it. Healing begins with acknowledgement. You cannot heal what you refuse to see. This does not mean reliving every painful memory in detail. It means recognizing that your emotional reactions today are often connected to experiences from yesterday. When you notice patterns, repeated fears, recurring conflicts, familiar insecurities, you are glimpsing echoes of unresolved pain. The mind is designed to protect you. When an experience feels overwhelming, your brain may suppress or compartmentalize it. This survival mechanism allows you to continue functioning. But suppressed emotions do not dissolve. They influence behavior indirectly. For example, someone who experienced rejection early in life may develop a deep fear of abandonment. Without realizing it, they may avoid close relationships or cling too tightly to them. Their actions are not irrational. They are protective responses shaped by past wounds. Understanding this connection replaces self-judgment with compassion. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" you begin asking, "What happened to me?" That question opens the door to healing. Healing is not about blaming others or dwelling endlessly on the past. It is about integrating your experiences into a coherent narrative. When you understand how your past shaped you, you gain the power to choose different responses in the present. One of the most important tools in this process is emotional awareness. Many people struggle to identify their feelings beyond basic categories like good or bad, yet emotions are nuanced signals. Learning to name them accurately increases your ability to process them. Are you feeling disappointed, ashamed, lonely, or afraid? Each emotion carries specific information. When you label feelings precisely, you activate parts of the brain associated with regulation and understanding. The emotion becomes less overwhelming. Allow yourself to feel without rushing to fix or suppress the sensation. Emotions move in waves. When you resist them, they intensify. When you acknowledge them gently, they pass more naturally. There is also power in expressing pain. Silence often magnifies suffering. Sharing your experiences with a trusted friend, therapist, or journal externalizes what feels trapped inside. Words create structure around emotions that once felt chaotic. Writing is particularly effective because it slows your thoughts. It allows reflection. You can explore memories at your own pace, connecting patterns and insights that remain hidden in constant mental noise. Forgiveness is another essential element of healing, though it is frequently misunderstood. Forgiveness does not excuse harmful behavior or erase consequences. It releases the emotional grip that past events hold over you. When you carry resentment, your nervous system remains anchored to the injury. Forgiveness frees energy that was locked in anger or bitterness. It is an act of self-liberation. Sometimes the person you must forgive is yourself. Many people carry shame about past decisions. They replay moments of regret, wishing they had known more or acted differently. But growth requires recognizing that you were operating with the awareness available at that time. Condemning your past self prevents your present self from evolving. Self-forgiveness acknowledges imperfection as part of being human. It allows you to extract lessons without attaching permanent identity to mistakes. Healing also involves redefining your relationship with vulnerability. Pain often convinces people to build emotional walls. These walls feel protective, but they also restrict connection and joy. Self-love invites gradual openness. This does not mean exposing your deepest wounds to everyone. It means allowing yourself to be seen authentically in safe spaces. Vulnerability strengthens relationships built on trust. It reminds you that imperfection does not diminish your worth. Professional support can be transformative in this journey. Therapy is not a sign of weakness. It is a structured environment for exploration and healing. A skilled therapist provides tools and perspectives that accelerate emotional integration. Healing is rarely linear. Some days you will feel strong and clear. Other days, old memories may resurface unexpectedly. This fluctuation is natural. Progress often looks like revisiting familiar pain with greater understanding each time. Patience is essential. Emotional wounds formed over years cannot disappear overnight. But each moment of awareness, each act of compassion toward yourself, contributes to gradual restoration. As healing progresses, you may notice shifts in your behavior. Situations that once triggered intense reactions feel manageable. You respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively. Your sense of identity becomes less defined by past pain and more shaped by present intention. You begin to see your history not as a burden, but as a source of wisdom. Every challenge you survived demonstrates resilience. Every scar represents endurance. Self-love does not erase the past. It transforms your relationship with it. Instead of being trapped by old narratives, you integrate them into a broader understanding of who you are becoming. And in that integration lies freedom. Because when you heal emotional wounds, you reclaim parts of yourself that were hidden by pain. You create space for new experiences, deeper connections, and authentic confidence. Your past may explain you, but it does not define you. And the act of healing is one of the most powerful expressions of love you can offer yourself. Chapter 6. Building Unshakable Confidence. Confidence is often misunderstood. Many people imagine confidence as loud certainty, a person who never doubts, never hesitates, never feels fear. They associate it with charisma, bold speech, and visible success. But this image is incomplete. True confidence is quieter and far more stable. Unshakable confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite fear. It is built from trust. Trust in your ability to learn, adapt, and recover. Most people wait for confidence before they act. They believe that once they feel ready, they will begin. But confidence rarely arrives in advance. It is a result of action, not a prerequisite. Each time you attempt something uncertain and survive the outcome, your brain updates its expectations. You gather evidence that you are capable. Avoidance does the opposite. When you consistently retreat from discomfort, fear grows stronger. The mind interprets avoidance as confirmation that the situation was dangerous. Over time, your world becomes smaller. Building confidence requires a willingness to step into manageable discomfort, not reckless risk, but intentional challenge. Choose tasks that stretch your abilities slightly beyond your comfort zone. Speak up in a meeting. Start a conversation. Learn a new skill. Each experience expands your sense of competence. There is a psychological principle known as self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to influence outcomes. Self-efficacy grows through mastery experiences. When you complete difficult tasks, your brain records success. Even small victories accumulate into a powerful internal narrative. I can handle this. It is important to celebrate these victories consciously. Many people dismiss their achievements quickly, focusing instead on what remains undone. This habit deprives the brain of reinforcement. Take time to acknowledge progress. Recognition strengthens motivation. Confidence is also shaped by how you interpret failure. If you see failure as proof of inadequacy, your willingness to try decreases. But if you view it as feedback, your resilience increases. Every expert in any field carries a history of mistakes that informed their growth. Consider the difference between these two statements. I failed because I am not good enough. I failed because I am still learning. The first closes possibility. The second invites persistence. Self-love supports confidence by creating a safe internal environment for experimentation. When you know that mistakes will be met with compassion rather than harsh judgment, you are more willing to take risks. Fear loses its paralyzing power. Your body also influences confidence. Posture, breathing, and movement send signals to the brain. Standing upright, maintaining steady breathing, and making deliberate movements activate physiological states associated with calm and control. These signals reinforce mental assurance. Preparation is another pillar of confidence. While you cannot predict every outcome, thoughtful preparation reduces uncertainty. Practice skills. Gather information. Rehearse scenarios. Preparation transforms vague fear into concrete action steps. However, perfection is not the goal. Over-preparation can become another form of avoidance if it delays real engagement. Confidence grows through interaction with reality, not endless planning. Comparison is one of the greatest enemies of confidence. When you measure yourself constantly against others, you create an unstable standard. There will always be someone more experienced or accomplished. If your worth depends on ranking, it will fluctuate endlessly. Shift your focus inward. Compare your present self to your past self. Notice improvements in awareness, skill, and courage. This personal metric is sustainable and motivating. Confidence is deeply connected to integrity, the alignment between your values and your actions. When you act in ways that reflect your principles, you develop self-respect. Self-respect strengthens confidence because you trust your character. Ask yourself, what values matter most to me? Honesty, creativity, rightness, discipline. Choose behaviors that express these values daily. Each aligned action reinforces your identity. There is also strength in accepting uncertainty. Many people delay action because they seek guarantees. But life rarely offers certainty. Waiting for perfect conditions leads to stagnation. Confidence emerges when you accept that unpredictability is part of growth. You learn to say, I may not know everything, but I can figure it out. Social environment influences confidence as well. Surround yourself with people who encourage growth rather than reinforce limitation. Constructive feedback and support create a climate where development feels possible. At the same time, avoid depending entirely on external validation. Compliments are uplifting, but they should supplement, not replace, internal belief. Develop the habit of self-acknowledgement. Recognize your efforts privately. Visualization can be a powerful tool. Before entering challenging situations, imagine yourself responding calmly and effectively. The brain processes vivid mental rehearsal similarly to real experience. Visualization prepares neural pathways for action. But remember, visualization must be paired with practice. Imagining success without effort becomes fantasy. Combined with action, it becomes preparation. Confidence is cumulative. It grows through consistent behavior over time. Each courageous decision adds a layer. Each recovery from setback strengthens resilience. You begin to see yourself as someone who persists. There will be moments when doubt resurfaces. Even highly confident individuals experience uncertainty. The difference lies in response. Instead of interpreting doubt as a stop signal, you treat it as a natural companion to growth. Speak to yourself with steadiness. Doubt is present, but I am moving forward anyway. This mindset transforms fear into momentum. As your confidence solidifies, you will notice changes in how you engage with the world. Opportunities that once felt intimidating become invitations. Conversations feel less threatening. Goals appear attainable. Most importantly, your sense of worth detaches from immediate outcomes. Success feels rewarding, but not defining. Failure feels instructive, but not devastating. Your identity becomes anchored in effort and integrity rather than external results. This is unshakable confidence, not because it eliminates challenge, but because it remains steady within challenge. And when you trust your capacity to navigate uncertainty, you unlock a level of freedom that reshapes your life. You stop waiting for permission. You begin acting with intention, and in that action, your power becomes visible. Chapter 7. Boundaries. Protecting your energy. There is a silent drain that affects millions of people every day. It is not always physical exhaustion. It is emotional depletion, the feeling of being pulled in too many directions, of saying yes when you mean no, of giving time and energy until there is nothing left for yourself. Many people confuse boundaries with rejection. They believe that setting limits will push others away, create conflict, or make them appear unkind. So they avoid them. They overcommit. They tolerate behavior that makes them uncomfortable. They prioritize harmony over honesty. And slowly, they lose themselves. Boundaries are not walls designed to keep people out. They are guidelines that define what is acceptable and what is not. They protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Without them, relationships become imbalanced. Self-love demands boundaries because love without protection becomes self-sacrifice. Every time you ignore your limits to avoid disappointing someone, you send a message to yourself, my needs are less important. Repeating that message weakens self-respect. Over time, resentment builds beneath the surface. Resentment is often a signal that a boundary has been crossed, either by someone else or by you failing to enforce one. Healthy boundaries begin with awareness. Ask yourself, what behaviors make me feel uncomfortable? When do I feel drained after interactions? Which commitments feel aligned and which feel forced? Notice your body's responses. Tightness in your chest, fatigue, irritability. These are clues. Your body often recognizes boundary violations before your mind does. There are different types of boundaries. Emotional boundaries protect your feelings. Physical boundaries protect your personal space. Time boundaries protect your schedule. Digital boundaries protect your mental clarity in an age of constant connectivity. Time is one of the most valuable resources you possess. When you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. Every unnecessary commitment reduces the energy available for your goals and well-being. Learning to say no is one of the most powerful expressions of self-love. No does not require a long explanation. It does not require guilt. It is a complete sentence. You can decline respectfully without over-justifying yourself. At first, this may feel uncomfortable. If you are accustomed to pleasing others, resistance may arise. Some people may question your change. But remember, people who benefit from your lack of boundaries may resist when you establish them. That resistance does not mean your boundary is wrong. It means your dynamic is changing. Clear communication is essential. Boundaries expressed calmly and directly reduce misunderstanding. For example, I am not available for that tonight. I need some time to think before I decide. I am not comfortable discussing this topic. I cannot take on additional responsibilities right now. These statements are firm but respectful. They protect your energy without aggression. Self-love also requires enforcing boundaries consistently. Setting a boundary once, but abandoning it under pressure teaches others that persistence will override your limits. Consistency builds credibility. Boundaries are not punishments. They are self-care. There is also an internal boundary, the boundary you set with your own thoughts. You can decide how much time you allow yourself to dwell on negativity. You can choose when to disengage from unproductive rumination. Protecting your mental space is just as important as protecting your schedule. Digital boundaries deserve special attention. Constant notifications fragment attention and increase stress. Limit exposure to content that triggers comparison or insecurity. Curate your environment intentionally. Protecting your energy allows you to engage fully where it matters most. Instead of spreading yourself thin, you focus on meaningful commitments. Quality replaces quantity. Some relationships may shift when you implement boundaries. This can be painful, but relationships that depend on your self-neglect are not sustainable. Healthy connections adapt to mutual respect. Boundaries also strengthen self-trust. When you honor your limits, you prove to yourself that your well-being matters. This reinforcement builds confidence and emotional stability. Remember, boundaries are flexible, not rigid. They can evolve as circumstances change. The key is intentionality. You choose your limits based on your values and capacity. There will be moments when you feel tempted to abandon your boundaries for approval. In those moments, pause. Ask yourself, am I acting from fear or from alignment? Fear seeks validation. Alignment seeks integrity. Over time, setting boundaries becomes easier. The initial discomfort fades. You begin to experience the relief of clarity. Your relationships feel cleaner. Your mind feels lighter. You no longer carry hidden frustration because expectations are defined. You conserve energy that was previously spent managing unspoken tension. Self-love is not only about positive thoughts and affirmations. It is about practical protection. It is about ensuring that your life reflects your priorities rather than constant external demands. When you protect your energy, you create space. Space for creativity, rest, connection, growth. And in that space, your power expands. Because a person who knows their limits and honors them cannot be easily controlled or depleted. They act from choice, not obligation. And that choice is freedom. Chapter 9. Designing a life that honors you. There comes a moment in the journey of self-love when awareness turns into action. You have begun healing old wounds. You have softened your inner critic. You have built confidence and set boundaries. You have become your own ally. Now a deeper question arises. Does the life I am living reflect who I truly am? Many people spend years chasing goals that were never theirs. They pursue careers chosen for approval. They maintain relationships out of obligation. They follow paths defined by culture, family, or comparison. From the outside, everything may look successful. Inside, something feels misaligned. Self-love demands alignment. Designing a life that honors you begins with clarity. What matters most to you? Not what impresses others. Not what appears prestigious. What genuinely energizes you? What values feel non-negotiable? Sit with this question honestly. If fear disappeared for a moment, fear of judgment, failure, or rejection, what direction would you move toward? Your answer may surprise you. Many people silence their desires because they believe they are unrealistic. But self-love invites exploration. It does not guarantee immediate change, but it encourages intentional movement. A life that honors you is not necessarily dramatic or radical. It may involve small shifts, adjusting your schedule to include rest, reducing commitments that drain you, prioritizing meaningful conversations over superficial ones. Sometimes it requires larger decisions, changing environments, ending unhealthy dynamics, pursuing long-delayed ambitions. Design begins with awareness of energy. Notice which activities leave you feeling expanded. Notice which leave you depleted. Energy is a compass. Follow it thoughtfully. Your environment also influences your self-concept. Physical spaces affect mood and productivity. Relationships affect confidence. Media affects mindset. Curate your surroundings intentionally. Ask yourself, does this space support my growth? Do these relationships encourage my authenticity? Does this daily routine reflect my priorities? If the answer is no, adjustments are needed. Designing your life is not about controlling every detail. It is about conscious choice instead of passive drift. Many people drift through years without questioning their trajectory. Self-love interrupts autopilot. Time is your most valuable resource. Every day you are designing your future through present actions. Small habits compound into identity. If you consistently choose alignment, your life gradually reflects your values. Consider daily rituals that reinforce self-respect. Morning reflection, evening gratitude, scheduled rest, intentional learning. These practices anchor your identity. Financial choices also reflect self-love. Spending, saving, investing. Each decision signals how you value your future. Responsible financial habits create stability, which supports mental peace. Career alignment is another critical area. Work occupies a significant portion of your life. If your work consistently violates your values or drains your spirit, resentment grows. While not everyone can change careers immediately, small steps toward alignment are possible. Developing new skills, exploring interests, networking intentionally. Designing your life also includes protecting your health. Sleep, nutrition, movement. These are not luxuries. They are foundations. Neglecting your body weakens your ability to pursue purpose. Self-love recognizes that your body is not an inconvenience. It is the vehicle through which you experience life. There is also courage in redefining success. Society often measures success by status, income, or recognition. But personal success may look different. It may mean freedom, balance, creativity, service, or peace. Define success on your terms. Once defined, structure your life accordingly. You may need to release certain expectations, both your own and others. Growth sometimes disappoints people who benefited from your previous version. That is part of transformation. Remember, designing a life that honors you is not selfish. It is responsible. When you live authentically, you contribute more meaningfully to the world. Fulfillment fuels generosity. There will be uncertainty. Designing requires experimentation. Some decisions will work. Others will require adjustment. That is natural. Perfection is not required. Direction is. Move gradually but intentionally. If you cannot change your entire path today, change one habit, one conversation, one priority. Momentum builds through consistent steps. Visualization can support this process. Picture your ideal day. Where are you? Who surrounds you? What work are you doing? How do you feel when you wake up? This mental image clarifies what you are moving toward. Then ask, what is one action I can take today that aligns with that vision? Alignment does not mean constant ease. Challenges remain. But there is a difference between difficult work that feels meaningful and effort that feels empty. As your life begins to reflect your values, internal conflict decreases. You feel coherent. Decisions become simpler because they align with defined principles. You also develop resilience. When setbacks occur, you are less likely to abandon your direction because it is personally chosen. You are not chasing borrowed dreams. A life that honors you feels lighter, even when it is busy. There is satisfaction in knowing your energy supports your own growth rather than constant self-betrayal. Over time, others may notice the shift. You appear calmer, clearer, more grounded. This is not accidental. It is the result of alignment. Self-love is not just internal emotion. It is external design. It is how you schedule your time, how you choose your environment, how you define success, how you protect your peace. When your daily life reflects your deepest values, you no longer feel divided. You feel whole. And wholeness is power. It is not dramatic. It does not always announce itself. But one day you notice that situations which once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. Decisions that once felt confusing now feel clear. The constant tension that lived in your mind begins to soften. You realize something important. You are no longer fighting yourself. And that is where true power begins. Power is often misunderstood as control over others. But the most profound power is mastery over your inner world. It is the ability to remain grounded in uncertainty. It is the strength to choose intention over impulse. It is the courage to live according to your values even when it is uncomfortable. When you love yourself deeply, your actions become aligned with your identity. You stop chasing approval and start pursuing meaning. This shift changes everything. Living with power means trusting your voice. You express your thoughts without shrinking them to fit expectations. You listen to feedback without losing your sense of self. You understand that disagreement does not equal rejection. This confidence is not loud. It is steady. It allows you to walk into unfamiliar situations with curiosity instead of fear. You no longer require perfect conditions to begin. You carry your stability with you. Peace emerges alongside power. Peace is not the absence of problems. Life will continue to present challenges, uncertainty, and change. Peace is the ability to meet those realities without internal chaos. When your relationship with yourself is healthy, your mind becomes a place of refuge rather than conflict. You process emotions without drowning in them. You acknowledge fear without being ruled by it. There is a rhythm to peaceful living. You move with awareness instead of urgency. You recognize when to act and when to rest. You respect your limits without guilt. This rhythm protects your mental and emotional energy. Many people search for peace in external achievements, believing that success, possessions, or recognition will finally quiet their minds. But external victories cannot replace internal harmony. Without self-love, success feels fragile. With self-love, even ordinary moments feel fulfilling. Purpose grows naturally from this foundation. Purpose is not always a single grand mission. It is the consistent expression of your values through daily actions. It is how you contribute to the world in ways that feel authentic. When you understand yourself, your direction becomes clearer. You gravitate toward work, relationships, and activities that resonate with your identity. You stop forcing yourself into roles that feel foreign. Purpose energizes effort. It transforms discipline from obligation into devotion. You are not pushing yourself through life. You are pulled forward by meaning. Living with purpose also includes service. Self-love does not isolate you from others. It expands your capacity to support them. Because you are grounded internally, you can give without depletion. Your generosity flows from abundance rather than sacrifice. There is balance in this state. You care deeply about others while remaining anchored in yourself. You collaborate without losing individuality. You love without abandoning your needs. Challenges will still arise. There will be days when doubt returns, when old habits whisper familiar fears. Growth does not erase vulnerability, but now you possess tools. You recognize the voice of self-criticism and respond with compassion. You notice emotional wounds and address them with patience. You maintain boundaries. You seek alignment. These practices become second nature. Resilience strengthens. Instead of viewing obstacles as threats to your identity, you see them as opportunities to deepen understanding. You adapt. You learn. You continue. Living with power, peace, and purpose also means embracing imperfection. You release the illusion that life must be flawless to be meaningful. You accept that mistakes are part of progress. This acceptance frees enormous energy. You stop wasting effort on impossible standards and redirect it toward genuine growth. Your focus shifts from appearance to substance. Relationships deepen in this state. Authenticity invites connection. When you are comfortable with your own humanity, you allow others to reveal theirs. Conversations become more honest. Bonds become more resilient. You no longer fear being seen. There is a quiet joy in this openness. It is not constant excitement or dramatic happiness. It is a steady appreciation for existence, for the complexity of experience, for the privilege of growth. You begin to notice small moments, sunlight through a window, laughter shared, the satisfaction of effort. Self-love heightens awareness of these details. Life feels richer. Over time, your presence influences others. Without preaching or forcing change, you model a different way of being. People sense your calm. They observe your boundaries. They notice your confidence. Some will be inspired to examine their own lives. This ripple effect is powerful. By transforming your relationship with yourself, you contribute to a culture that values compassion and authenticity. Personal growth becomes collective impact. Ultimately, living with power, peace, and purpose is not about reaching a final destination. It is an ongoing practice. Each day offers opportunities to reaffirm your commitment to yourself. You wake up and choose awareness. You choose compassion. You choose alignment. These choices accumulate into a life that feels intentional. And in that intentional living, you discover a truth that was always waiting. You are enough as you are and capable of becoming more. That paradox, acceptance and growth coexisting, is the essence of self-love. It is the foundation of a life lived fully. I've dreads. Money of sex. Paul Y. It is a lifelong relationship with the person you will spend every moment with, yourself. Throughout this journey, you have explored awareness, compassion, healing, confidence, boundaries, friendship, alignment, and purpose. Each element contributes to a deeper understanding of your inner world. But knowledge alone is not transformation. Transformation happens in practice. It happens when you notice a critical thought and respond gently, when you honor a boundary despite discomfort, when you forgive a mistake and try again, when you design a day that reflects your values. These moments may seem small, yet they shape identity. Remember that growth is not linear. Some days will feel effortless. Others will challenge your patience. During difficult moments, return to the foundation, compassion. Speak to yourself as you would to someone you love deeply, because that is what you are learning to do. Loving yourself does not mean becoming self-centered. It means becoming self-aware. It means recognizing your humanity and treating it with respect. From that respect flows strength. A person who stands firmly beside themselves cannot be easily shaken. They navigate life with clarity. They build relationships rooted in authenticity. They pursue goals with courage. They live with power. And that power is quiet. It does not demand attention. It radiates through calm decisions, steady confidence, and meaningful action. As you move forward, carry this understanding with you. Self-love is not a destination you reach once and keep forever. It is a practice you renew daily. Each sunrise offers another chance to choose alignment. Each challenge offers another opportunity to deepen resilience. You are not required to be perfect. You are invited to be present. Present with your thoughts. Present with your emotions. Present with your growth. In that presence, you will continue to discover layers of strength you did not know you possessed. And as you build this relationship with yourself, your life will expand in ways both subtle and profound. Because when you truly learn to love yourself, you unlock a power that changes how you see the world and how the world responds to you. That power has always been within you. Now you know how to access it.